Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a bonus episode of the Terminal FC podcast. My name is Nathan Jurek. I've got Josh Ray with me as well as always, but we have a special guest today. We have Ross Smith, MLS analyst with Apple TV, with MLS Pass, I believe is the right way of saying that. Is that right, Ross?
MLS Season Pass. Yep.
All right. Ross, you had a career that spanned well over a decade. Spent time in England with Dagenham Redbridge, Ebbsfleet United. Came over, had a couple of
Nice.
stints here with Colorado and Portland, and now you've been doing this and also Portland Timbers TV for the past 9 years. How are you doing, and how's life? I guess after a playing career.
First of all, Nathan, life after a playing career, you're the first one to bring up Dagenham and Redbridge in my time, which I appreciate wholly because somebody that tells me that you follow the game worldwide as
I've
well.
got a friend of
The way you
mine.
pronounced it as well.
I've got a friend of mine here whose parents helped build that stadium.
Wow. In
Yeah.
Victoria Lane. Oh my goodness, I can't. Victoria Lane. What's it called now, this stadium?
Oh my
Really?
God, I
It
don't
they,
know.
they did a good job.
Yeah, yeah.
Still
Parents got
standing.
married there.
Yeah. They a couple of years back they built a new stand. It's almost like a championship level stand. And so the rest of it is all what you imagine a non-league stand to
Yeah.
be. It could blow over and gust of wind. That's nothing to take away. It's a fantastic stand, I should say that. But and then there's this one stand now where they've put a lot of money, like one good FA Cup run, and they change one stand.
Oh
It's
man,
it's
FA Cup run
it's
at that level, that's all you need, right?
it really is. It really is. But I appreciate that. And what's interesting, Nathan, I think when you say that and you run down my sort of plain resume, I did have a sniff at being a Whitecaps player, and that's one of my regrets is not taking it on. I was in a hotel room down the road and looking to sign, and I actually signed with Rochester Rhinos instead because of a pathway that it looked as though it would show me, which was the Colorado Rapids. And that's a regret of mine that I just left Dagenham and Redbridge and I came here for a week of training and I was out in Burnaby and it rained the whole time I was here. And I thought, I've just come from Dagenham and Redbridge. I didn't realize how beautiful and what Vancouver had to offer. I was with Chris Posniak. I don't know if you remember that name. Um,
I had no idea. That's well, there you go. Thank you
Crazy.
for that story.
so anyway, sorry, I've wasted
Yeah,
all your time now.
let's get into it. Whitecaps. I want to talk about the Whitecaps and how they are so far because this season could be historic. They're
Yeah.
4 points off 53 points, which is their record in MLS so far. They've had a manager change, but really the roster itself, other than a couple of key pieces here and there, has stayed very, very similar. You can almost go back 3, 4 years. What is working this year that maybe didn't, not necessarily did not work in years before, but is
Yeah.
improved?
They know what they are, the Whitecaps, and I think what they are is two things. It's fun to watch. It's a fun brand of soccer, and they're successful with it. And where it's most impressive, which I know we'll get into Philadelphia, but it's similar that there's guys perhaps who were overlooked at another time, who carry a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, who have come together into a system that Jesper Sorensen, and as you know, I'm going to step on the training ground today. It'll be my first time stepping on the training ground. I'm fascinated to find out what it is, that little bit of magic, how he's been able to unlock so many guys, get everybody pulling in the same direction. And so I think all of that to come together to find a common thread is what's made them so successful. But now they've made that next step with Muller, and I know a conversation won't go by without bringing him up. But now I think you've got a guy who knows what the weight of a trophy is, and so you got a guy coming in the dressing room who's going to bring that. Now all of a sudden you've got a complete team. You just need to stay healthy, and I'm interested to see Brian White when I step out on the training ground as well today. But the formula's there.
Very nice.
Yeah, yes, of course. You mentioned Thomas Muller. We can't mention the Whitecaps without Thomas Muller. And just Ross, your reaction to Thomas Muller signing with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and
Yeah.
what do you think the Whitecaps can do to get the best out of him?
I think what you saw in the second half of the last game against St. Louis, the first half, looked as though he struggled. The entire Whitecaps team struggled. But that second half, and when he came on in his first match as well, I mean, it was electrifying. You guys must have been there. It was
Yeah.
coming through the TV screen, but it seemed as though everybody else around them, puffed up their chest, they put their shoulders back, and he was bringing out the best of everybody else. That dipped in the first half against St. Louis, but then you really started to see what he could bring, and the pockets that he finds, the interpreter of space, self-proclaimed. It showed the areas that he can get into, and then how players can work off him. If it's Ali Ahmed, now that he's come back and he's fit, which is great. If it's him cutting inside, coming off from the left, if it's Sabi, you're getting a lot of players being able to come inside the pitch, and players who are good technicians of the ball that can work a bit of space. Now, ultimately, it comes down to he brings everybody together. And I've just finished watching the Sebastian Berhalter piece on Apple TV Plus, where the cameras have followed him around, and he's taken an ice bath in the water. Is that English Bay? That he's taken an ice. I don't know if you've seen it in the
But
morning
you
match.
know what? I have. It could be. English Bay, I don't think gets cold enough for an ice bath, but yeah, who knows?
Not this time of year.
But later in the episode, you guys have seen is they're going golfing with Thomas Muller. So he's bringing guys together on the pitch, and he doesn't have such an ego that he does his own thing outside the pitch. He seems like he's a goofy guy, that off the pitch he's a jokester, and guys I think will be attracted to that. And then, oh, by the way, while we're on our golf trip, maybe get a phone call from Bastian Schweinsteiger or Ribery or somebody. He's a big ticket. He's a big ticket, and he's bringing everybody else with him.
Getting the call from Bastian Schweinsteiger right as he's giving out the information that Tristan Blackman makes the American men's national team at the same time.
And everybody forgives him because he's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
the background. Nobody's going to say anything. That was remarkable. That was great. A great media hit.
Does do the Whitecaps require a bit of a formation change in order to get the best out of him? The reason I ask that is because with that brand, Ram Dowder, interpreter of space, is he gets to kind of roam a little bit freely as like that number
Yeah.
two role. And I especially ask this because Ryan Gauld is now entering full training after being out for 6 months. So
Yeah.
now you get to get both of those guys in there. How do you do it?
I'd love to put the question back to you, and
Yeah.
I think that question can be better answered from me when I step onto the training ground today. And whenever there's a question I don't feel I could give the proper insight, then I will be able to hopefully later on today. I think that's such a great question, and I always do think when you have really good footballers, intelligent minds like Gold and Muller, of course, you'll find a way, and those guys will find a way to work with each other. But Muller ultimately needs to be in the half spaces, but so does Gold. And I know Gold, he's not going to drift out to the wings. He needs to be cutting inside. He needs to be getting in between lines, in between defenders. But I then, like I say, I look to you. What do you think with it all? Where do those two fit? What should I be looking for when I step on the training ground?
Whether how team sheets are written or whenever we see them or what we see kind of Gauld when he does start, he usually kind of starts out hugging a little bit of the left side. So and then
Hmm.
he from there he floats inside, allows fullbacks further up overlapping him and whatnot. But I do see both the two of them switching
Yeah.
spaces constantly, right? Which I mean, it's going to be an absolute nightmare to try to mark those two when they're on the pitch together because you're not going to know which way you're going to go. I'm wondering how many center backs you're going to see colliding.
Yeah, that's just it. And I mean, and ultimately, you do need stretch guys. You do,
Mhm.
and the depth, which we haven't got into with Nelson. Um, in there, he offers you that to be able to. He's coming off the bench, but you've got a different way to get at teams.
Josh?
Yep. So we have Philadelphia tomorrow at BC Place, and like the Whitecaps, went through a coaching change in the offseason. And obviously, Philadelphia has been a consistent playoff team throughout the years, except for last year. But what's changed from last year, from what you saw with the Union? 12th in the East last year to now first in the Supporters Shield race.
Yeah, but what's really interesting with Bradley Cardell when he steps inside the BC place, inside the stadium, the last time he stepped in the stadium, he was sacked 2 days
Yep.
later with St. Louis. And so my partner Tony Husband courageously brought that up on our call with Bradley Cardell, and he's fully embracing this. And what he's done stepping into the Philadelphia Union locker room, he stepped into a cast of guys who had a down year last year, but are honest characters and really good talent. And he's brought a fresh breath to the team. Slightly changed. It's no longer the diamonds, but you're still going to see guys come really narrow and combine off one another. And then they've added a couple of important pieces. One of them in the center of the park, Lukic. You'll see it'll be a good battle in there with Kubas and Berhalter, with Lukic and Danley Jean-Jacques. I think for Philadelphia, they got two of the best holding center midfielders in the league. That for me is their platform, and then they build off it. And where you build from that, it's just as good. And so they've got a balance, is what it comes down to. They've got the balance. And Bradley Carnell, he's brought the intensity that you saw that he first brought in with St. Louis, where guys are hungry, guys will be on the front foot. They're going to make life horrible for Vancouver, but then they've got the quality as well. And that finally takes me to the best bit of quality that they've added is Milan Olaski. He was with San Diego. He scored 4 goals here.
Yeah.
I was calling the game against the Whitecaps. He's going to be stepping back into the building. He's going to be feeling good. That guy has been sensational. And I don't know the ins and outs of how San Diego didn't get to keep him. But if San Diego don't progress and really push on, that's the one area they needed was a number 9. And they let Milan Olaski, I don't know if they let him go. They didn't come to terms. But their loss is Philadelphia Union's big-time game.
I was going to ask you about Olaski. You answered it. So I'm going to switch over to Ty Bariba, the guy who was the almost Whitecap back when he was still playing in Austria.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, Whitecaps actually played against him in a friendly in the offseason. I want to say about 2-3 years ago when he was still in Austria. And it just seemed like it was going to be so close. And then something happened. And I think 6 months later, he was with Philadelphia. This guy hasn't lost a beat since he's come over to MLS either. So is adding Iloski kind of now a 1-2 punch up there?
Well, it's interesting, Nathan. So Olaski will. I thought it was going to be one of the best 1-2 punches. Bradley Carnell hasn't been playing him, Olaski up top. He's been playing him as off to the side and almost as like a Ryan Gault,
Yeah.
will drift inside and almost operate in a number 10 position at times. That's where he's been playing. He's kept Damiani up top with Baribo. And so it's it's a 1-2 punch in a different way. And what Baribo is continued to do for me, he's one of the best in the league at being able to sniff out a chance at gambling and one-touch finishes. I mean, the guy looks a little unorthodox. Jim Curtin, he was in Jim Curtin's team for about half a year, and Jim Curtin wasn't playing him. And then finally gave him a run out, and Baribo couldn't stop scoring goals. And Jim Curtin said, "Look, guys, I'll be the first to admit that I just didn't see it. I didn't see it in him, but he's a gamer." And so that's where, with Baribo, with the center backs of Vancouver, I'm looking forward to seeing, mentally having to be switched on, because that guy, all of a sudden, you spend too long looking the wrong way and he's gone away from you.
He's one of those guys that, if you're playing like EA Sports or Football Manager, he's the guy that has poacher listed beside him because, like you said, he only needs that
Yeah.
one touch.
Yeah, and it's great. It'll come off his knee, it'll come off his shin, his backside. It doesn't matter, but he's there and he celebrates like he means it every single time. He's fast and he knows what he is, and that's what it gets back to with Philadelphia. They know what they are, and it's almost as though Bradley Carnell, what the iteration he was trying to get to was St. Louis, which was make them a better ball playing team and possession up the pitch. He was transitioning St. Louis to that, not just transition and pressing team. He's got that with Philadelphia now, and he's got more mature guys. He's got more quality now. And I think, everybody's seeing is that Bradley Carnell, when he was shown the door after his game against Vancouver, perhaps it shouldn't have been him that was shown the door. Perhaps he should have been the one to see the change through in St. Louis.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and you mentioned Carnell and Philadelphia. They play a very counter-pressing, transitional play type of soccer from what I've researched. And they've also given up the least amount of goals in MLS this season, which, given by the way Philadelphia has played, isn't surprising. How do you think the Whitecaps, what do the Whitecaps need to do to break down that defense Philadelphia has?
Well, it's a great question. A big plus for Whitecaps is the fact that center back Makanya is out suspended, who has been sensational, and what a talent he is. He is out for he was red carded in the last match. So I imagine Nathan Harriel, who's with the US men's national team, I imagine he'll come in besides Jacob Glesnes. And so with those guys, Jacob Glesnes, you'll notice tomorrow he likes to come and press, and he likes to hunt the ball into the midfield, and he gets away with it because Makanya has got the pace in behind to be able to sweep up. Harriel's got pace, but he doesn't read the game quite as well. So for me, it's dragging Glesnes out if we're getting really into the weeds of movement. Is being able to drag him out, use that space in behind. And then being able to be clean on the ball as well when you build out and build through Philadelphia and you get into that final third, because they are so good at hunting. They love it. They seem to have adopted Bradley Carnell's way of getting a boost out of winning tackles. And so they got to be good on the ball, the Whitecaps, in order to be able to break them down, because as you mentioned with the stats, they are sensational, Philadelphia behind the ball.
You talked about players that are going to be missing. Obviously, the Whitecaps are dealing with a bunch of long-term injuries, players that are out for the rest of the season. Some word on Andre Blake. I know he had a bit of a hamstring thing. Do you know where he is with that? Because that's a big guy to lose too.
It is, and the youngster Rick has come in. He's been tremendous,
Yeah.
and it was
He
always
haven't skipped a
before that.
beat.
Yeah, the narrative was if Andre Blake's out, don't let any shots come on goal. And that's changed. And I remember with Rick before Jim Curtin said, again, Jim Curtin is just so honest, which is it makes him who he is. But he would tell us, like, look, guys, Rick, we don't know an awful lot about with games. We don't know how he's going to handle it. This was in years past when Blake wasn't available. And so it was almost as though we told guys, don't let shots go on goal. Well, that's changed. That's changed. Now you've got a guy who's come in. He's looking confident. But I actually don't know the answer to that, Nathan. I'm going to be stepping on the training ground as well today with Philadelphia Union just to see is Blake here? Is he in Vancouver? Is he working his way back?
Okay.
All right. So we've got a matchup between two potential Coach of the Year candidates, Jesper
Yeah.
Sorensen, Bradley Carnell. Both have their teams playing really exciting football. Jesper, obviously, with his possession-based system. Carnell, as we mentioned, with the transitional base. Just out of the two coaches, if you had to pick, which one would be Coach of the Year?
I'm sorry to say, Bradley Carnell.
Yeah.
Bradley Carnell right now. They slightly edge it for me in terms of if you had to pick somebody to progress through the playoffs who are hitting on all cylinders. Whereas, look, that could change. You could ask me, Josh, on Saturday night if Vancouver lumped Philadelphia 4-0, I'll change my decision. But right now, Philadelphia are ready made. Whereas Vancouver, how have they used this time, this break? It's been a long break for them, which is going to be interesting. How have they used that time to bring the new pieces in together to get them working? And what's it going to mean with Brian White? Anyways, Coach of the Year to this point is Bradley Carnell. Coach of the Year at the end of the year, it's going to depend on obviously the success in this run in right now with the teams.
Fair enough.
Fair
You
enough.
talked about breaks. I want to talk, kind of throw out another number you. April 27th, 2019. That's that last time these two teams actually played a game against each other. It's been
Yeah,
that long. And before that, it had been every 1 or 2 years. So when you have a break, we're talking 5, 6 years, can you even read into past history on these two teams?
yeah. The way it's going now, Nathan, in this league, I don't think you can even read into last year because of
Yeah.
coaches changes. When you mention Coach of the Year, right away there's five other guys who come into mind could be Coach of the Year who are new coaches to the league as well. So I mean, so much changes and the roster movement as well, which at one point was you didn't see as much because MLS became a league of if you signed a player, it's very difficult to get rid of them. Still is difficult, but it's becoming easier. So there's a lot of change over year to year now, which keeps things fresh, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So, Ross, do you have any predictions for tomorrow?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question.
Based on all this history that we have.
I mean, they're two teams that can play in two different ways. They can make it, they can play with the grit and they'll grind and give very little away, but they're also two teams that can go and put the ball in the back of the net, and it could end up being, a 5-4 match. My goodness, I'll go a safe 2-all. What about you guys?
You know what? I might go back with that score back in 2019 and go 1-all. And for the main reason is because when we last talked with Sorensen, and Axel, he basically said Brian White is not going to be playing in this game and likely the next two after this because of the hamstring injury that he had back then. And when you take him out of the lineup, that it's such a significant loss that sometimes it's very tough to figure out where those goals are going to come by. And that's when you need to have a guy like Sabi have, a game where he stands on his head, or Ali Ahmed comes back with everything that he did with Canada just now.
Yeah.
1-1, I'm going to go with.
I'm gonna excuse me. I'm gonna go with a 2-2 draw. I think this game could have some fireworks given the caliber of these two teams have, and yeah, I'll just go with a 2-2 draw, especially with Thomas Muller on the pitch. There's a lot of
Yeah.
belief that the Whitecaps can put the ball back into the net
And
even
that's
more.
the other
Yeah.
thing is because with Mueller coming back, they've had these 3 weeks to try and figure out how to make a system work with him. I don't think they're going to be as rusty as they were in that first half that we saw in the previous match. So I think there's the capacity for them to surprise us in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, fair enough. Ross, thank you very much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I want to go back to this Ebbsfleet Daggers career that you had. When I got back into football after spending years away, I grew up in Edmonton, so hockey rules everything. I got in through Football Manager and became a fan of all teams, Braintree.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I wanted to
Fantastic.
ask you, because you would have played there probably a couple of times. Atmosphere just in non-league in England. What is it like? How is that different? Because it's a different fan base. It's smaller, but it's rabid.
Yeah, it's desperate. It really is. And where the fans come into the game, that is their hard-earned money that it's the working class group that it's a thought for them to have to let go of that money. The 10 quid, the 15 quid it costs to get through the gates and come watch the game. And you feel that come across. And it's the type of atmosphere, like you said, it's almost easier playing in front of bigger crowds because you don't hear the individual comments
Yeah.
where you hear what's being said about you, and you're touch tight to the fans as well. So it's interesting that I always think back like Wrexham and what's come of that. I was part of when I was with Dagenham and Redbridge. We're the reason why they went down when they plummeted. We were League Two and we had a game there. That was the most desperate game I've ever been a part of. And I've been fortunate, with the Timbers to play, against the Sounders in US Open Cup where it's packed stadium. And that I remember there was a couple thousand fans there. And I thought, this is intense. Like I have to hold on for dear life. That's what it felt like just about week in, week out, that, the promotion relegation is real. Players feel it. I'm so grateful that I went through that time of, the good and the bad, because when it's on top of you, and I lived in a couple of towns that I played for, and I thought I'll never do that again. The good days, you get a free pint. The bad days, you get the pint thrown at you. So
You,
that's what
you,
it came
you
down
put the
to.
hoodie over the head and hope no one's
Yeah,
looked inside.
yeah, absolutely.
Ross, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have fun at training today.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks for
Enjoy the
having
game
me on.
tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. Look forward to hopefully seeing you in person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully. Take care.
Take care.
Yeah. Okay, excuse me running. I'm gonna